Hey, we are back, and next up is Blastman. Blastman's got an interesting stage when it comes to a pacifist run because there are a lot of exploding boxes and a lot of ways to kill enemies that may or may not involve us doing it. So, we gotta figure out how we're gonna handle that. The simple way I deal with it is, am I killing them? So, am I making the boxes explode? If so, then I'll take credit for it. If not, then, well, they did it to themselves. But in the meantime, I would think like this to make some of these boxes explode without having to worry about it knocking anything out. And in the meantime, this is something that would have caused a big issue. I know I'm passing it fairly quickly, but I would not have been able to get past that tall wall if not for having Rush Jet, which is why it took me so long to actually do this stage. Alright, so I'm going to wait for an opportune moment here, and either the blowtorch is going to knock out the Sniper Joe, or I can just pass them off, which is probably true. And we're going to leave this guy out of the way of the exploding boxes, while I go ahead and get some free health. Believe me, this stage requires a decent amount of route planning, but once you got it planned, it's not too bad. I have to wait. Okay. There we go. Alright, so we've got a mini boss that's going to require a lot of death. But the thing is, this is actually the best way to do this with the minimal death. If you disagree, I look forward to seeing or hearing about your alternatives. There's a lot of enemies in those roller coasters, but what they want you to do is knock those enemies into the roller coaster carts one by one, which is probably not the best way to go about it as far as a pacifist run goes. Well, that was a hit that I've usually never taken in my practice run. Oh well. Alright, so after this room, we've got our first use of Pac-Man's weapon. And it's using it as an air dash. Not our only use of it. And we'll use the speed gear to go ahead and clear that trap. Honestly, this ends up turning into one of the cleanest runs we've got. I say that now. We'll see how it ends up. Here's one of the other parts. Usually it ends up with me in that pit if I don't place it correctly. I know a guy's going to come down. That's okay. Now, we have a room. We have a very interesting room in this next room because what's about to happen is a lot of explosions. What I've noticed is if I bait the first enemy enough, I can make them avoid all the explosions. Basically start outrunning the explosions. Because there's a lot of enemies in there that can get killed if I don't be careful, or if I'm not careful. But I think we're all right there. So next we have the boss, and with some good angling of the weapon, Torchman's weapon should take care of it pretty well.
I've got a pretty short fuse.
But if you run out of his weapon, it makes it a little more difficult.
It's art. Blow you sky high.
About to run out of his weapon. Watch out.
Come on, explode! Speed gear!
And let's go ahead and make sure that last one hits. There we go. So we lost a decent amount of life, but as you can tell from the timer, it was a pretty quick and pretty efficient run of a stage that can be quite a pain in the neck. If you don't know what you're expecting, it can be incredibly frustrating or downright impossible depending on how you define pacifist run. But in the meantime, let me know in the comments how you would define pacifist runs. Would you declare it as not taking out explosive boxes? Would you call it differently if those explosive boxes knocked out different enemies, whether you had started those explosions or not? Or yeah, if you define it differently, let me know how you define it. So in the meantime, that is part 6 of our pacifist run. There are no easy stages after this one. I've left these two for a reason, and if part 7 ends up being Bounce Man, prepare for possibly an even uglier level than Impact Man. So until then.